So this book, it came with another book that was actually written by James Allen, From Poverty to Power. So we are on that book now. And yeah, this one's actually longer than As a Man Thinketh. Maybe this one's not as popular, maybe because of the length of it. People got spoiled with a very strong book that was so small, like As a Man Thinketh. It's a very small book, but very powerful. And so From Poverty to Power, and just do a little still of that. And so yeah, right here there's an author's forward to original edition. So this will be the first, like, one small quick video before the first chapter. So the author, again, my phone sucks, it doesn't focus automatically. So before the author's forward, there's this little quote. So, let love's bright sunshine play upon your heart. Come now unto your gladness, peace, and rest. Bid the dark shades of selfishness depart, and now and evermore be truly blessed. Author's forward to original edition. I looked around upon the world and saw that it was shadowed by sorrow and scorched by the fierce fires of suffering. And I looked for the cause. I looked around but could not find it. I looked in books but could not find it. I looked within and found there both the cause and the self-made nature of that cause. I looked again and deeper and found the remedy. I found one law, the law of love, one life, the life of adjustment to that law. One truth, the truth of a conquered mind and a quiet and obedient heart. And I dreamed of writing a book which should help men and women, whether rich or poor, learned or unlearned, worldly or unworldly, to find within themselves the source of all success, all happiness, all accomplishment, all truth. And the dream remained with me and at last became substantial, and now I send it forth into the world on its mission of healing and blessedness, knowing that it cannot fail to reach the homes and hearts of those who are waiting and ready to receive it. James Allen. And then it says the contents of this book. Part 1, the path of prosperity, the lesson of evil, the world a reflex of mental states, the way out of undesirable conditions, so the way out of undesirable conditions, the silent power of thought, controlling and directing one's forces, the secret of health, success, and power, the secret of health, success, and power, the secret of abounding happiness, the realization of prosperity. So that's the end of part 1. Everything I read was going to be chapters in part 1, which is the path of prosperity. And part 2, the way of peace. Now I'm going to mention the chapters as of before. The power of meditation, the two masters, self and truth, the acquisition of spiritual power, the realization of selfless love, the realization of selfless love, entering into the infinite, saints, sages, and saviors, the law of service, the realization of perfect peace. Okay, part 1, the path of prosperity. The first chapter, the lesson of evil. Unrest and pain and sorrow are the shadows of life. There is no heart in all the world that has not felt the sting of pain, no mind that has not been tossed upon the dark waters of trouble, no eye that has not wept the hot, blinding tears of unspeakable anguish. There is no household where the great destroyers, disease and death have not entered, severing heart from heart and casting over all the dark pall of sorrow. All the dark pall, P-A-L-L of sorrow. In the strong and apparently indestructible meshes of evil, all are more or less fast caught, and pain, unhappiness, and misfortune wait upon humankind. With the object of escaping or in some way mitigating this overshadowing gloom, men and women rush blindly into innumerable devices, pathways, Okay, so this is page 56. So, all right. Okay, so, okay, with the object of escaping or in some way mitigating this overshadowing gloom, men and women rush blindly into innumerable devices, pathways by which they fondly hope to enter into a happiness that will not pass away. Such are those who revel in sensual excitement. Such are the exclusive uh, ascetics, Aesthetes, who shut themselves out from the sorrows of the world and surround themselves with enervating luxuries. Such are those who thirst for wealth or fame and subordinate all things to the achievement of that object. And such are those who seek consolation in the performance of religious rites. Into all the happiness sought seems to come, and the soul for a time is lulled into a sweet security and an intoxicating forgetfulness of the existence of evil. But the day of disease comes at last, or some great sorrow, temptation, or misfortune breaks suddenly in on the unfortified soul, and the fabric of its fancied happiness is torn to shreds. So over the head of every personal joy hangs a Damoclean, capital Damoclean. So over the head of every personal joy hangs the Damoclean sword of pain, ready at any moment to fall and crush the soul of those who are unprotected by knowledge. So he's saying everybody deals with the pain that pushes them to want to thrive for something at every certain level. It doesn't matter what it is, or not. Man, you can't say absolute every single person, but he's talking right here about people who are running to these certain vices to escape the certain pains and thoughts that they have to deal with. And then but then earlier he says something about an unfortified, like something that's not protected. You don't have nothing around it to defend it. Unfortified soul. It says right here, or misfortune breaks suddenly in on the unfortified soul, and the fabric of its fancied happiness is torn to shreds. Of the idea that happiness comes from constantly working and chasing these things to just run away from our pains. The child cries to be a man or woman. The man and woman sigh for the lost felicity of childhood. The poor chafe under the chains of poverty by which they are bound, and the rich often live in fear of poverty, or scour the world in search of an elusive shadow they call happiness. Sometimes a soul feels that it has found a secure peace and happiness in adopting a certain religion, in embracing an intellectual philosophy, or in building up an intellectual or artistic ideal. But some overpowering temptation proves the religion to be inadequate or insufficient. The theoretical philosophy is found to be useless prop, or in a moment the idealistic statue upon which the devotee has for years been laboring is shattered into fragments. Is there then no way of escape from pain and sorrow? Are there no means by which the bonds of evil may be broken? Are permanent happiness, security, prosperity, and abiding peace just a foolish dream? No, there is a way, and I speak it with gladness, by which evil can be overcome. There is a process by which disease, poverty, or any adverse condition or circumstance can be put on one side, never to return. There is a method by which a permanent prosperity can be secured, free from all fear of return of adversity. And there is a practice by which unbroken and unending peace, bliss can be partaken of and realized. The beginning of the way that leads to this glorious realization is the acquisition of a right understanding of the nature of evil. It is not sufficient to deny or ignore evil. It must be understood. It is not enough to pray to God to remove the evil. You must find out why it is there and what lesson it has for you. It is of no avail to fret and fume and chafe at the chains that bind you. You must know why and how you are bound. Therefore, you must get outside yourself and must begin to examine and understand yourself. You must cease to be a disobedient child in the school of experience and must begin to learn with humility and patience the lessons that are set for your edification and ultimate perfection. For evil, when rightly understood, is found to be not an unlimited power or principle in the universe, but a passing phase of human experience, and it therefore becomes a teacher to those who are willing to learn. Evil was not an abstract something outside yourself. It is an experience in your own heart, and by patiently examining and rectifying your heart, you will gradually be led into the discovery of the origin and nature of evil, which will necessarily be followed by its complete eradication. All evil is corrective and remedial and is therefore not permanent. It is rooted in ignorance of the true nature and relation of things, and so long as we remain in that state of ignorance, we remain subject to evil. There is no evil in the universe which is not the result of ignorance, and which would not, if we were ready and willing to learn its lesson, lead us to a higher wisdom and then vanish away. But people remain in evil and it does not pass away because they are not willing and prepared to learn the lesson that it came to teach them. I knew a child who would every night when its mother took it to bed cried to be allowed to play with the candle, and one night when the mother was off guard for a moment, the child took hold of the candle. The inevitable result followed, and the child never wished to play with the candle again. By its one foolish act, it learned and learned perfectly the lesson of obedience and entered into the knowledge that fire burns. This incident is a complete illustration of the nature, meaning an ultimate result of all sin and evil. As a child suffered through its own ignorance of the real nature of fire, so older children suffer through their ignorance of the real nature of the things which they weep for and strive after, and which harm them when they are secured. The only difference between that and the latter case, the ignorance and evil, are more deeply rooted and obscure. Evil has always been symbolized by darkness, and good by light, and hidden within the symbol was contained the perfect interpretation, the reality. For just as light always floods the universe, and darkness is only a mere speck or shadow cast by a small body intercepting a few rays of the illimitable light, so the light of the supreme good is the positive and life-giving power which floods the universe, and evil the insignificant shadow cast by the self that intercepts and shuts off the illuminating rays which strive for entrance. When night folds the world in its black impenetrable mantle, no matter how dense the darkness, it covers but the small space of half our little planet, while the whole universe is ablaze with living light, and every soul knows that it will awaken the light in the morning. Know then that when the dark night of sorrow, pain, or misfortune settles down upon your soul, and you stumble along with weary and uncertain steps, that you are merely intercepting your own personal desires between yourself and the boundless light of joy and bliss, and the dark shadow that covers you is cast by none and nothing but yourself. And just as the darkness without is but a negative shadow, and just as the darkness without is but a negative shadow, and just as the darkness without is but a negative shadow, an unreality which comes from nowhere, goes to nowhere, and has no abiding dwelling place, so the darkness within is equally a negative shadow passing over the evolving and light-born soul. But why pass through the darkness of evil at all? Because by ignorance you have been chosen to do so, and because by doing so you may understand both good and evil, and may more appreciate the light by having passed through the darkness. As evil is the direct outcome of ignorance, so when the lessons of evil are fully learned, ignorance passes away and wisdom takes its place. But as a disobedient child refuses to learn its lessons at school, so it is possible to refuse to learn the lessons of experience, and thus to remain in continual darkness and to suffer continually recurring punishments in the form of disease, disappointment, and sorrow. If you wish to shake yourself free of the evil which encompasses you, you must be willing and ready to learn, and must be prepared to undergo that disciplinary process without which no grain of wisdom or abiding happiness and peace can be secured. You may shut yourself up in a dark room and deny that the light exists when it is everywhere without. And darkness exists only in this little room. So you may shut out the light of truth, or you may begin to pull down the walls of prejudice, self-seeking, and error that you have built around yourself, and so let in the glorious and omnipresent light. By earnest self-examination, strive to realize and not merely hold as a theory that evil was a passing phase, a self-created shadow, that all your pains, sorrows, and misfortunes have come to you by process of undeviating and absolutely perfect law, have come to you because you deserve and require them, and that by first enduring to endure, not enduring, but by first And okay, by first enduring and then understanding them, you may be made stronger, wiser, and nobler. When you have fully entered into this realization, you will be in a position to mold your own circumstances, to transmute all evil into good, and to weave with the master hand the fabric of your destiny. That was the end of that chapter. Peace, y'all.